will. All right. Well, welcome everybody to the October 26th PRAC meeting, and we're going to call this to order. We've got, first of all, introductions. My name is Tim West. I am the current committee chair and operating out of Eugene today. So I'm glad to be here via Zoom. So I'll let you guys continue around the room.
Joyce, you want to kick things off?
Joyce Gifford.
Steve Williams, I'm the vice chair.
I think we heard Emily. She was trying to.
Yeah, I think I talked right over the top of her.
Ken Worcester.
And Joey Knopf.
Well, very good. Welcome everybody. The first order of business is to go ahead and approve the minutes of last month. And do I hear any discussion on the minutes of September 28th?
I would move approval of the September 28th, 2023 Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee minutes.
I'll second it.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Do I hear a second?
Yep, I'll second it.
Fantastic. We've approved the minutes, and we're ready to move on. All right, so the next is public comment.
Tim, we will need to do a vote.
Oh, all right.
Oh, I'll do a roll call. Joey Knopf,
Yes.
Ken Worcester,
Yes.
Steve Williams,
Yes.
Joyce Gifford,
Yes.
Tim West,
Yes.
and Emily Lisborg.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Okay, now we can move on. All right, so the next order of business is public comment. Do we have anybody in the public sitting there today that wants to comment on any subject?
No.
No, we don't?
No.
All right, we're going to zoom through this. So today we're going to, our topic of the day is the McLaughlin Boulevard Enhancement, 10th Street to Tumwater Village. So I'm anxious to hear more about this project. So who do we have presenting?
Christina Robertson Gardner, Senior Planner, will be presenting this evening.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you, Parks and Rec members. Thank you for having me here this evening. Once again, my name is Christina Robertson Gardner. I'm a senior planner, but I'm also working in conjunction with Dana Webb, our city engineer. So we can't quite make it to all the meetings. So we've been splitting up the different boards and commissions and providing kind of an overview of the project before we really start in. So as you are all our community ambassadors and liaisons, we want to get you up to speed early on in the process, understand what your questions are so we can really have a successful outreach and a design process. So this, oops, it did work just 5 minutes ago.
Oh, it did, and now it's not going to. You know why? I wonder if it's...
Well, we're working on it. Oh, here we go. It does work. Oh. So this presentation is kind of a bit of a standard presentation we've been giving over the last month. Some slides I'll go over a little quickly. If there's something you want more information, I will stop. I don't need to take up your whole evening, but I wanted to make sure you had the true background of where we are today and what we need to do to move forward. So tonight, presentation overview of project goals, how we got here, where we're going, and kind of the expectations for the design process. And what you may see at the bottom, so we've been called the project, the McLaughlin Boulevard Enhancements, 10th Street to Tumwater, because that kind of explains the expanse of what we're doing. But this is a ODOT reviewed project because it is on an ODOT highway. So their technical federal appropriation name is Willamette Falls Shared Use Path, Oregon 99E Enhancements, 10th Street to Railroad Avenue, which is really long to put on a presentation. So we've decided as a city, we're going to shorten that and call it McLaughlin Boulevard Enhancements. So we've been working for the last couple of years to really dive into what we call phase 3 of the McLaughlin Boulevard Enhancement Plan. Since its adoption in the early 2000s, which was really a way for the city to design a highway that runs through our city, and there where we've ignored the river for decades, first thing you do is you adopt a plan, and we did that in the early 2000s. And phase 1, we worked on from really the 205 interchange to 10th Street, where you have the Willamette Falls Terrace now and the connection down to John Storm Park. Phase 2 really was looking along the Dunes Drive area between the 205 interchange and the Gladstone Bridge. And the reason phase 3 has been so complicated is it involves the viaducts, the 1940s viaducts, which were built as part of 99E in the 40s. And as part of the original McLaughlin Boulevard plan, kind of early conversations with ODOT, they thought that those viaducts might be in a replacement schedule. So we said, great, we can design a new bridge with really great pedestrian and bike facilities. And as the years go on, we're realizing that the viaducts are not going to be on a replacement schedule. And so we really need to figure out a creative way to bridge that gap, that pedestrian gap and bike gap between really 10th Street around that curve. And so we received grants to move forward to a design alternative phase, but we're also going to complete with a kind of conceptual design for both streets, both sides of 99E from 10th Street all the way around the curve to the railroad tunnel. So we're going to look at how do we bridge that gap as an alternatives analysis and big picture understanding, and then what's our conceptual streetscape design for that whole section. So that's where we're at today. We just received some grant monies a couple years ago. We've hired on a consultant team, Kittleson Associates, and their subs. And this is a project that is actually managed by ODOT because it's on their system, and we're not a big enough city to manage federal money. But because this is such an important project for Oregon City and really our front door, we are doing the outreach and providing the communication and really making sure that the kind of outward face is coming from the city. And we are involved in all aspects of the management process and the consultants' deliverables. So the project area really is looking at 10th Street to the tunnel, Tumwata Village is the name the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde have chosen for the former Blue Heron paper mill. And so rather than just Railroad Avenue, Railroad Tunnel, Tumwata Village really is the southern piece of this section. You'll notice that Main Street is included in the project area buffer, and that really is kind of the no-build alternatives. As you always do engineering plans or design plans, you always have the no-build alternative, which is what happens if we can't figure out a solution, I guess, and then really pedestrians and bikes would go down Main Street. So we still have to analyze the no-build scenario. It's not necessarily anything the city wants to pursue, but as you move forward and see the surveys and open house information, there will be, once again, these comments about, the third option or, the no build option. And so that's why Main Street is included in the project area. But it's really not something we want. This was the graphic we turned in when we applied for the grant, and it really shows kind of the constraints that this section has. You have, once again, on the top, those 1940 viaduct. And a viaduct is, rather than a bridge, it is a structure that connects one high point to another high point. So in various places along that section of 99E, it is a partial or full bridge. And that really goes from 10th Street to about 8th Street, and then you move on towards the more basalt cliff. We have existing conditions with crumbling sidewalks, sidewalks that are not to ADA standards, too thin, do not allow for bike access and such. If last time you've walked that section, I'm sure you didn't quite feel very safe as you had the cars zooming by you as you hugged next to the railings. So this was our Regional Flexible Funds Grant. So I like to think of this as $673,000 is a lot of technical investigation, as you can imagine. And really, it is the kind of part one of a two design process, which is part one is what's our approach, and generally what's our concepts for both sides of the freeway section, and then we would move to a second design process, which would further define that. We just, in a perfect world, we'd have more money to do phase one and phase two of the design process together, but this is really, what's our approach? And let's see. As I said, 2005, we adopted the McLaughlin Boulevard Enhancement Plan, and over the years, we've worked on improvements of phase one and two, something that the city has also worked on in 2014, and that is working with ODOT to create special designations along this corridor of 99E. ODOT has what we call a special transportation area designation. I like to call it when your highway goes through Main Street designation, which means there's some additional design opportunities we may have to reduce traffic speed and to have some additional design tools in the toolbox because we're a special transportation area. If anybody's been to Sisters, Oregon, and the work that they've done, that's a special transportation area. A lot of times when a highway goes through a main street in Oregon, they work on those special transportation areas to have additional design options. 2014, we also became a MMA, which is not a martial arts term, but it's a mixed-use multimodal area, which says we're a mixed-use downtown, and we have people that walk, bike, use cars, and takes transit. So we got the whole mix, and so we received that too. And those are important to get before you move forward with the design. So here's some overlays showing kind of the work we did in 2008. In the first phase one, we had better pedestrian connections across 14th Street and better pedestrian connections as you went onto the 205 interchange. This shows a great picture and before and after of what 99E looked like before phase one for those who were not here in 2007. Once again, trying to get more connections between pedestrians on the river into and create those kind of web of connections into downtown as much as possible. In phase two, once again, more pedestrian connections across Dunes Drive. There used to be only one pedestrian connection on one part of that four-segment, so the southbound of Dunes Drive now had pedestrian connections, and then Firestone Alley was reconfigured to be more pedestrian-friendly and safer. And then here's phase three. So this is the today overview of what we have. We also have a National Register listed historic Oregon City Westland Bridge that perpendiculars 99E. So there's a question of how do you navigate your way through under the historic Arch Bridge. But this is also Oregon City's front door. So just as much as it's an ODOT transportation project of what do we design to get from point A to point B, this is also Oregon City's, an urban design project connecting up to parks. This is how do we connect up to John Storm Park? How do we connect up to Clackamas Park? Our pedestrian, trail system, the work that Grand Run will be doing at Tumwater Village in the future, and maybe even the future pedestrian bike Westland Bridge. So these are all these inputs. How do we better connect to Main Street? How do businesses on Main Street feel that when people are walking along this corridor, they feel that there are lots of crossing opportunities and they can easily get in and out of downtown. And so it's a connected and not a two parallel entities that wave at each other but aren't integrated. Culturally, this is an important cultural space for more than one tribe, as well as our historic resources along that segment. ODOT and their senior archaeologist is providing all the tribal outreach, which I think is really great. They have deep connections, and so we're really lucky to have that piece of the ODOT expertise. So the adoption process for this first phase, which is really that technical question of what approach do we take to connect people from one side of the, this corridor to the other, knowing the viaduct we can't hang anything off the 1940s viaduct. It's not really structurally set up. So we're reaching out, we're doing technical investigations with our design team, as once again, ODOT is providing the tribal outreach, and we're doing general and target outreach. So right now we're reaching out to pedestrian, bike, transit user advocates, tourism folks. We'll be having open houses, virtual open houses over the course of this process, and then always asking who's missing from the conversation. The design direction is identified for 4 different city commission briefing meetings. And so those are available, to attend in person and to provide public comment for. We haven't set up all the dates, but the first briefing is going to be right now, tentatively, the November 7th work session, the first briefing. And you will all be signed up to the project page and notifications because you're on a board and commission. So I've already added your name, so don't worry about signing up. I already added you. But we'll let you know through some emails in the future whenever anything new comes up in this process. What is adopted technically, so this is the planner hat on, this is already in our transportation system plan, but it's going to be a refinement to it to provide more details. And so when it's all said and done and a design direction is given and a conceptual design is agreed upon, the city commission will adopt an amendment to the transportation system plan to provide that additional clarity, which will then allow us to apply for more grants. So that's really the process, is the alternatives approach, the conceptual design of both sides. Going through the process this next year, city commission will adopt the decided approach, and we will start applying for grants to move to that next phase, which is to provide that more detailed design. So in other words, what is decided is what's technically feasible and what the community wants to see. So it's some combination of the two. But really, this is a waterfront project just as much as it is a transportation project, even though, we can have a bigger lens than ODOT. So we want to put this slide in as really this is connecting a lot of our waterfront desires. And if we don't work on this project, then we have a big gap for years to come. And so I think this really is critical, especially just knowing what our approach is going to be. So our next steps, as I mentioned, right now tentatively is November 7th, though that may slide a little bit, a week or two depending, but there'll be a meeting with the City Commission in November, going over the corridor vision and purpose and need and some of the alternative concepts. Those include a new bridge, like a new pedestrian bridge that's parallel to the viaduct, so you'd be next to but not on. Another option would be something that goes down to the river and come back up again. And the third option, of course, is a hybrid of the two. So there'll be an online open house the first 2-ish weeks of December, where we can kind of hear the public's comment. Is there an option where you feel more safe than the others? Is there an option that you would be more likely to use? Is there something that you think we're missing in our analysis? Those are some of the options. And right now, the first open house is really going to concentrate on that bridge part of the alternative, because once that is determined, kind of the rest of the street design will flow from there. So future open houses will talk about things, especially things I'm really interested in, which is a pedestrian crossing at 99E and Main Street. How do we make that much safer and inviting and a gateway to folks who want to go into Tumwater Village? What do we do with the area underneath the historic Arch Bridge? How do we make that a much more community design space? And again, how do we increase pedestrian connections along that area? So that's kind of the second part of the outreach. First part is what are we gonna do with this bridge? How are we gonna design something that can, so people don't have to use the existing viaduct? And there's a project page. You can get to it 2 ways, from our Public Works department site as well as the planning department site. I recommend the planning one only because we're able to get it directly on our main page. You also have a bit.ly web address on the back of your flyer that I just saw, and I've been talking to folks. QR codes, either people love it or hate it, but I think we're having enough people that like QR codes, so we might in the future see more QR codes on information we pass out. But I do recommend, you are already signed up, but I do recommend to encourage your neighbors or your friends. All you have to do is go to that page, and we have scroll a little bit farther down than the screenshot, and we have a real easy sign-up sheet. You just put on your name and email address, and there's even a paragraph box if people already have thoughts that they want to add. They can do that right there. So I'm here for any questions people may have, but we're really at the beginning of the process, but we want to make sure everyone kind of understands what we're asking. Sometimes transportation projects can seem a little boring and everyone kind of glazes. I do that too. I'm a planner, so I understand. And so we just really want to get the word out, and so people really understand what nut we're trying to crack this next year.
I have a question.
Ready for questions?
Which one is mine? This one, I guess?
Yeah.
How will this be coordinated with the proposed waterfront path?
Sure. Let me go back. That's a great question. So the Riverwalk or any future pedestrian open space really connects right up where Water Street is. So you don't see Water Street today, but it exists. It was vacated. It's the back parking lot of the administration building of the former Blue Heron Paper Mill really is Water Street. And so whatever, really it's future open space is going to connect up to 99E at that point. And so it's that, if Confederate Tribes of the Grand Ronde they're working on their master plan for Tumwater Village, and an open space is still part of the plan. It's just not quite this first phase. Really, they're looking at just their general master plan as they move forward this next year. But really, it's looking at how does this 99E work seamlessly kind of connect up to that Water Street.
Steve?
Christina, can I speak?
Go ahead, Tim.
So what, I see that this plan was drawn up 20 years ago, and lots of things have changed since then. With, number one, the tribes there, they had received $20 million to go ahead and do the legacy walk right there. What's the status of that, and how does this proposed walk work with that?
Sure. The Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde, I think they're still working through their master plan, and an open space and shared use path is still part of the land use document and their plan. How the public money and Grand Ronde's plan, that really is kind of, they're leading the direction on that. And so I don't have timing for anybody on that, but what I think our goal is whenever we do these projects that abut, it's trying to see how we can make things be seamless when each stage is built together, even if we don't know when each stage is actually going to be built. And you're absolutely right, Tim. This was an old plan, and that's why when you do a phase, we can open up the plan, and we know right now that we can't just go hire a design team to build or draw up design plans because there's no new viaduct. So we really are kind of brushing it off. Now, the things that don't change in this plan are kind of the big goals, right? Which is we should be reorienting ourselves to the river. We should be redesigning 99E to the extent practicable to not be a highway that runs through our city. We should be creating more pedestrian connections. We should be creating a streetscape that integrates with economic development. So none of the goals of the McLaughlin Boulevard Enhancement Plan have changed. And if you want to read through it, we do have a link to that document on this project website. And those are really standard, true goals. It's the details of things have changed. We have a beautiful new arch bridge. Before that, the arch bridge was in not great condition, when this was built. So we have a greatly rehabilitated Main Street from when the document was really adopted. So a lot of things have changed. So we can have a new lens on the specific pieces of the corridor, but the major goals don't change.
Okay, I have one more thing. I have a bunch of things, but we'll go to the important one. One of them is that this is designated designated, McLaughlin was designated a regional bikeway and pedestrian parkway. A bikeway, I just find so contradictory to what it exists today, just because it's a bikeway to nowhere, and nobody's gonna ride their bike on Highway 99. So it's a dangerous thing to get around that tunnel. That tunnel's not gonna go ahead and change size or shape, I'm sure even with ODOT money. And to say that this is a bikeway to somewhere is just a misnomer, because it is downright dangerous beyond the Main Street entrance. With this bike path, or with the walkway that you described that goes beyond the sidewalk as it is right now out into the river, that sounds beautiful. That'd be great, and they give a reason for people to go ahead and be there and walk there. But biking is something that I really take issue to. That's fine.
Yeah, the biking south of the tunnel, I'm not aware of, we're not involved in the tunnel, the south of the tunnel. We're concentrating on connecting folks to Tumwater Village, to downtown, and to any future pedestrian or bike bridge over to West Lynn. I mean, that's really the three things we're concentrating on. And this project ends at Railroad Avenue. I mean, that's the technical limit.
And I see that another thing that didn't exist 20 years ago, is some of the plans that ODOT has. But I see that in your big plans, it involves putting in a raised mound in the middle of the road, just like further down McLaughlin on towards 10th, 11th, 15th Street right there. And to do that, it looks like and sounds like you'd have to reduce the number of lanes on McLaughlin Boulevard. And with that slowdown, it'll be pretty awful, especially when the tolls happen on Highway 205, which will make even more traffic come on 99E. And I'm just wondering how you have addressed that.
To my knowledge, there's no anticipation for reduction of travel lanes on 99E as part of this project, which is kind of where Main Street falls in for the pedestrian and bike, which is, sure, we can remove a lane in each direction and give that to bikes and peds, but there's a lot of effects to that decision. And in no way is there direction by the design team or anybody else looking at reduction of travel lanes.
Thank you.
Just really one question. Corey, can you take me back to the early on in
Oh,
the
I can
slides?
do
There was
this.
an overview. Maybe you take.
What? Tell me to stop.
One of the, I think it was maybe your third slide. There it is, right there.
Oh, this one?
No, it shows the river. There was an earlier one yet.
Does it
Well,
show the?
I can make my point.
This one?
That
That
one right there. There is a long history along in several locations along here, particularly right there. I guess that'd be west of the word boulevard there on Highway 99E. Long history of angling access all along there. And does the plan envision maintaining or enhancing any of that opportunity to connect to the river? I mean, we talk a lot about being connected to the river, but we got some work to do to get connected to the river in a number of locations. And this is just another one of them that has a long history of angling. I mean, long history there on that particular piece of rock in particular. Yeah.
So I can answer some of the question.
Okay.
The 8th Street dock, which I didn't mention, so I'll see if I can. Maybe Corey, you can, can you circle the area where the star is? That's the star just above the word McLaughlin. Yep. Sure. So that was an historic dock, the 8th Street dock. There's stairs today, but historically boats, river boats in 19th century, that was a heavy commercial area. That is definitely on people's thoughts, and the options where you go down to the river probably would incorporate access down that area. Fishing access is a coordination with Oregon, ODF and W, and what was be allowed. I mean, some areas that they have no longer allowed for sturgeon and the wall, if people can remember when that was cut off, I don't think that's going to change. So in what scenario could folks get down to the river and fish? Absolutely put those in your comments as we look at, and I don't know the answer, as we look at, the options, especially the ones that get you closer to the river.
Well, just to follow up, I would agree with you. You mentioned quite a bit of loss of angling access that was there as a result of the wall and a number of issues that, we couldn't figure out ways around. But with that loss, then makes even more important that angling opportunities, or at least access, or it doesn't have to be angling, but at least access to the river that would let people do a number of things associated with water recreation. So it's an important thing to remember.
Yeah, and some projects I kind of know where it's going. This one, I don't know. Like, this is a bit of a conundrum. Like, all options have good points and, and constraints to them. So get involved. If you're the angling community or you want to know more, like, it's that community vision and technically feasible, and we got to do the work to marry those two together. But we got to hear from the community and what they want.
I had a clarifying question.
Sure.
Kind of piggybacking off what Tim had asked, like, to increase pedestrian accessibility and, safe sidewalks, if the lanes weren't, if the space wasn't coming from the lanes, presumably it would be coming from like the sides, or like where is this going to happen? I guess I'm just trying to get a visual of like where that sidewalk would be, where that biking lane would be, if it's not being taken away from the road itself, because there's not a lot of wiggle room.
Yeah, on the city side, there's no anticipation of acquiring more property on the kind of the downtown side. So it's working with what we have. And then on the river side, it is that really you're building a separate structure that is either parallel to 99E or it goes down and pops up again, is kind of the two things that the design team is kind of thinking out. And those are the kind of proposals and questions folks will see in the December virtual. I'm starting to kind of see the consultants' initial diagrammatic approach. And like all things, we'd all want a beautiful 3D rendering, but you can't spend that money at the beginning of the process. So some of these are more conceptual, but like, how do you use this area? What are your fears? What would make you feel safe? What would make you want to use it? These experiential questions. And then you probably will see some alignment maps in the December virtual open house. And then crossing between, either side, it's just working with ODOT on safety. There may be areas where we could add additional pedestrian crossings and the curve is harder. So, those are kind of those conversations we will be having.
Okay, thank you. And I guess one more thing, just also to kind of follow up on something Tim mentioned about like the 99E being a bike area. Like, I used to bike everywhere, and I haven't really been biking since I've been in Oregon City. And it's, I guess to me, like, having a bike lane, like, would it be with the intention of opening up biking spaces within that very small area, in which case people would probably be like driving in, and it seems unlikely they bring their bikes with them, or unless they're on public transit, maybe.
I like
because there's very few like bike safe pathways like leading to downtown. I mean, within downtown it seems okay, but except for on 99E. But just in terms of getting there, there's just not very many safe access routes.
Sure, I think it's looking at, if you're coming in from Gladstone, you're walking and biking from the Gladstone pedestrian bridge and the vehicles.
Okay.
If you're taking, I know a lot of recreational bikers take the Highway 43 loop and they come right into downtown over the Arch Bridge. So this is more of, this is a piece of the puzzle in the long term. As you have a revitalized Tumwater Village, this is a giant gap in that kind of how people are getting in and out of this area.
Okay, yeah, I guess Westland makes sense, and yeah, there is, yeah, that bridge from Gladstone. I don't actually know, is there a current bike path, like from that Gladstone bridge, to this area right now?
Yes, there is.
Yeah. No.
Okay, and it's pretty safe to bike?
Yeah.
Okay, cool, thank you. Thanks so much, Christina.
Yeah.
Emily, except for the construction that's going on.
Yeah,
right now.
and the 205 bridge is a place and time, but, have more conversations about, I always remind people that when you do an open house, well, there's specific questions that we need to know. But then there's also a lot of free form, like, the reason I gave these answers is because of this background issue, and we have space, and your city commissioners, they read those appendices with all the free form responses, and so that's a great time to put your comments in.
Thank you.
Christine, I see a couple of things. This active transportation gap, I mean, I could see that a lot of this project is just getting ahead of the curve. When there's money that ODOT says they want to go ahead and spend, you go ahead and help them spend it. First of all, have you had a chance, or anybody from this project, talk to the tribes about what their timeline is, about when and if that legacy walk is going to happen, and when they're going to be ready to go ahead and give access beyond the curve to all the way up to the falls?
Mm-hmm. Well, there's kind of a two-part question, I think, Tim. One is, this is not an ODOT, this is an ODOT facility, but this is an Oregon City project. So we get the grants, we design it, we build it. So ODOT has basically said, this segment, they'll maintain an existing condition. So really, this is Oregon City's job if we want something better, we need to be the ones who lead that vision. And so it's actually staff and the city commission through their resolutions and support to get the multiple phases needed. And I think once you have, we have adopted in the transportation system plan in about a year, we'll move forward for better, go from conceptual design to more of what we call schematic design, which is that next level of detail. And then you can apply for construction grants. And maybe we don't build all of it at once. Maybe we only build part. Maybe we can, and as land use comes, my land use hat, you can't make a developer build something that's not adopted. So I don't know too much, the non-Tumwater Village piece, but it's always good to have an adopted plan because then you can exact proportional improvements. But with regards to the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde, I don't have their schedule. We're all working on our own parallel paths, and the key thing is to have plans adopted, so when money is available, either together or by ourselves, we can work to fill in the pieces. And so that's what collaborating between governments and entities is we all try to do our part, so when money is available, because if money came available today, we couldn't get construction money, because we're not there yet.
Yeah, so the Oregon City has spent years planning the legacy walk with the same sort of public input and design and proposals, and it sounds like we're going to do it all over again for the same property. So it's hard to go ahead and look at, let's spend Oregon City money when this has already been planned out to a certain degree with the legacy walk. So I have a hard time with that one. All right, but the connectivity, I think, is great. I think that the proposed walk that would be parallel to the highway would be wonderful, getting people and bikes off of the Highway 99, and it would certainly make it a whole lot safer. I walked on that property today and rode my bike through that whole extent, and it's like, no way would I want to go ahead and bring my family down here on a bike ride. And even to walk on that area, it's intimidating because the road is so close to the highway. So separating all of that would be really nice. Thank you.
Thanks,
All
Christina.
right, any additional questions?
Thank you.
Always feel free to email me or Dana Webb, our city engineer, if you have any technical questions or process questions. But y'all should get an email from me sometime in early November, and I'll keep you updated as the plan progresses.
Keep us updated where we can,
Yeah. You'll-
participate and get involved and,
And then if, at some point, if you want to invite us back, either Dana or myself, as we get farther into the process, I'm happy to come back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, move right along. We have the next thing on general business is PrAC involvement ideas and then committee goals and vision. And I was wondering if Kendall could start us off on this discussion.
I would love to. Well, we've had some conversations about how we would go about sharing some ideas with you and really try to focus in on improving PrAC engagement, but also leverage all of your talents and your resources and ours as well to try to make the greatest impact for the community. And so how we felt like we should set this up from the beginning is provide an opportunity for us to highlight some of the opportunities where we think PrAC can come alongside us and be involved and be a part of some of the projects that we're doing. And what we tried to do is we tried to look at three different categories, whether it be programs or capital projects or policy. And so what we're going to do tonight is try to kick things off. Each division manager will have the opportunity to highlight their specific ideas and provide a brief explanation of what they're thinking about in regards to the engagement and be able to answer any questions. So we'll kick things off with the first slide. I thought that I'd kick things off with talking about some of the bigger things that are going to be ongoing conversations for us throughout the year. Parks Master Plan, we're still currently working on the final draft of the Parks Master Plan. And so there will be multiple conversations where we will be coming back with that plan, having some conversations with the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. The other thing is Clackamas Park. I like to say that we're close to getting this plan adopted. Just a brief update. Again, I'd like to thank the people who showed up to the work session this past week to support us with the Clackamas Park Master Plan. And there we had some conversations around the RV park, the location, and also had some conversations around the ability of the Clackamas Park to host big events and around parking and things of that nature. So our plan next is to now bring back the rezoning conversation for the RV park and the overflow parking lots to hopefully get the overflow parking lots rezoned so they can accommodate the relocation of the RV park. So that will happen November 1st, and then hopefully we'll get the okay to take it back to the Planning Commission to get the plan moving forward. But there'll be some additional conversations before we get there here with the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. The other thing is the SDC methodology, which we just kicked off. We're just in the beginning stages of that. We're working with our consultant. We're also working with our consultants for our Park Master Plan, really focusing in on our capital improvement projects, which is going to be a big topic that we bring back here to have some conversation about. So that will be one of the things that we'll be we'll continue to bring back to the committee as well. Next.
I'm gonna actually, give me 1 second because that is not the most up to date. Yeah. Is it? Oh, it does have our thing down there. Interesting. There was a couple other.
All right, next we'll have Brandon talk about some parks and cemetery projects.
Good evening. We talked last time about the pollinator garden and that, but what I was looking at for assistance with that was like securing funding and support for it, and like help with selection of native plants and that with the community, and then just create a volunteer group to be involved and participate in the maintenance and upkeep of it. Like just reaching out through you guys's, how you guys reach out to friends or community. I'm pretty sure you guys are around more than just parks, but also I was wondering about like fenced dog parks, and some of them, I have Wesley Lynn up there, but there was a few other sites like Barkley Hills and Stafford, and it would be those ones. But putting out a survey to the community to provide input on what type of dog park they would like, because I know that with TSW there was some issues that people didn't like, so it'd be nice to like put a survey out there. I don't know, organizing something like that to send out to the community to get their input, so then if we decide to do another dog park, we have more input on that. Seeking donations for material and contractors, it's really expensive, which you guys probably know, border, fencing, everything. Also exploring grant opportunities to provide financial support for those dog parks would be helpful too, or reaching out to your guys' contacts, or putting us in contact with somebody, researching some of that, so then we don't have to go through looking for people who write grants. Our Pioneer Cemetery Road is deteriorating very fast, and that's kind of a pretty popular visited spot. And again, that was like seeking donations from contractors for gravel, and if we can find places like that, and it would involve removing the asphalt and everything. So it would be all the asphalt gone with the gravel, and then it'd be like a 4-inch overlay slab for driving on down there. So it's another expensive, long project, but something I think that kind of needs to be done. It's been patched a bunch of times with concrete, so there's a lot of issues with it. But also funding for making more parks ADA accessible. We're having a lot of people requesting that a lot, and so that would just be again, researching funding opportunities to add ADA playground components, swings, picnic tables, and also at some of our other parks that we have existing is considering adding ADA accessibility, like pathways, like Rivercrest doesn't have any pathways out there. Some other ones, there's Hazelwood, some of those parks where we could actually put in ADA components, but we need to have a walkway for the ADA compliancy and everything. Funding for path, seeking out donations or grants again for some of our paths. I know some of you have walked Clackamet, and the paths down there are a little bit to be desired, and Hillendale's having some issues lately too that we're patching. So, and that was kind of what I had. It's kind of a lot, but just throw some ideas out there.
Just a quick question, Kendall. I should know the answer to this, but I don't. Does the city have a donations account that would allow folks to directly, contribute through that account that is focused here?
Focus on parks, yes, we do, yeah. And so some of the things that I like to highlight on Brandon's list, with the pollinator garden, we had brought that project last month to PrAC to have some conversation around. We have our one pollinator garden at VFW. We like the opportunity to add an additional pollinator garden, and it's somewhat cost prohibitive right now with our current budget. So there are opportunities for us to work together, whether it be advocacy with other foundations, other groups. I'd mentioned the Parks Foundation. We're heavily involved with the VFW pollinator garden, and then volunteer opportunities to engage with the community, neighborhoods to help with some of the project as well. So those are some of the things that we would be looking for from this group. With the dog park, just last year, we had a desire to add an additional fenced dog park. And if you look at the feedback that we're receiving from our community, even with the addition of TSW Dog Park, they want more dog parks. And so we had considered Stafford Park as a possible location for another dog park, but leadership wanted us to wait to see how TSW was received, see if it met the need of the community. But now that we know that it's not meeting that need and they still want more dog parks, looking at opportunities where we can provide that to reach a different population, a different neighborhood. So Wesley Lynn, Barkley Hills, and
It was Wesley Lynn, Barkley Hills, Stafford, and
those were the three locations that we had identified that could be some of the best options for us because of location and because of the limited investment we would need to put in order to have an additional dog park. Funding is always going to be a need for us. So opportunities to go out for grants is going to be something we will look at. Opportunities for PrAC when we do have projects that we like to pursue, helping us tell that story to the community, helping us tell that story during budget time is going to be critical because that truly makes a difference. ADA accessibility with our newer parks, we've been able to address that. But with some of our aging parks and aging infrastructure, we know there's a need to address that at some of those parks, and identifying those areas where we would best be suited to do that is going to be important. And even in conversations with our consultants with our Parks Master Plan, having an ADA transition plan moving forward to where we have these projects lined up when we do get the funding and have a plan moving forward to be able to address some of these ADA concerns. We had the Women's Club reach out to us about the possibility of adding some ADA equipment to one of our facilities. Unfortunately, the numbers don't work. They're definitely willing to support us, but the cost to have to get the paths ready and all the additional money that would take to get the site ready is somewhat cost prohibitive. We think it's a great idea and something we want to pursue, but we just don't currently have the funding for that. And then the cemetery tour. We were planning to do like a master plan for the cemetery this past fiscal year. unfortunately, budget constraints with our wonderful cemetery restroom prohibited that. But we do know and we do understand that's going to be really important to be able to outline short-term and long-term goals for the future for the cemetery and the operations of the cemetery. There needs to be some type of expansion. We have a rental property currently located on that site that we plan to eventually expand into that area. We're currently working out of a very old home that's not suited as an office that needs to be developed to be able to accommodate the people coming in. And then we also need space for our staff as well. So there's a lot of things that we will need to figure out with the cemetery. So I really think it would be beneficial for us as a group to go out there and have some conversations about the site, some of the limitations of the site, some of the things that we need to do moving forward. And then obviously, if we can get the additional funding for that master plan, keeping everyone involved in that process so we can better kind of move forward with a plan for that cemetery. And then end of the Oregon Trail. It's part of the Oregon City history, the fabric of Oregon City, but it's in pretty bad repair. It needs a lot of work. It has a lot of deferred maintenance, and we just aren't getting the funding that we need to take care of that property. So we need a long-term vision for that property, and that's why one of the big moves is to do some master planning and some visioning of what do we want this to be moving forward, and have a business plan tied to that. So we think it would be really beneficial for us as a group to go out there, do a tour of the site, have some conversations with Kyle about some of the things that need to happen there, and Brandon, so you will have a better understanding of some of the things that we're trying to deal with and trying to manage.
Do you, the city does not have an ADA transition plan?
I'm aware of.
There are some plans for some facilities, however, a published ADA transition plan as required by the state had not been finished.
So, and there was not, do you anticipate a recommendation coming from about that in the master plan?
Yes, definitely.
Are they gonna do an audit, or are they just gonna say?
They're probably going to recommend that we develop an ADA transition plan.
So nothing in the works for some sort of an audit to?
Not at this
Start that
time,
process.
but I would like to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You better
Yeah,
quickly.
yeah.
Kind of scary.
Yep.
I've got a question. Brandon, have you put dollar numbers on any of these funding things that you're asking for? It'd be nice to know a total volume, dollar amount that you're asking for, just so we're aware of how big the need is. And I think that, we'd love to advocate for you.
The only numbers I have are for that pollinator garden with having a company come in to do the excavation, and the rest of it, I have not put the numbers to there because the road for the cemetery, asphalt fluctuates, gravel's fluctuating right now. The dog park, I'm not 100% sure, and I don't have any numbers other than just that pollinator garden, sorry.
So, is the Stafford, dog park, is that the one underneath the power lines that you were talking about a while ago?
No, that's Claremont that goes underneath there. The Stafford one is over off of Holmes Road, over there. And the Barkley Park one that I had mentioned isn't the one that's off of Barkley where Alden and Hilda are at. It's down off of 12th.
Yeah, the Stafford one, Tim, is, you can access it, through a very, like a very narrow trail, in Singer Creek Park. So it's kind of like that nexus between like there's a biking lanes on Malala. You could get there Malala Homes from McLaughlin, and then also, yeah, the Elyville and then Rivercrest. So it's kind of like in the middle of all three of those.
Okay, very good. Yeah, so are you talking hundreds of thousands of dollars? It sounds like the total dollar amount is where we're at.
It would be hundreds of thousands of dollars to complete that list, yes.
And, sorry, just a specific, for the pollinator garden, is the excavation that would be required, is that like to make it accommodating for plants, or is it to make it, there's like some sort of infrastructure, like drainage issue, or what is the primary purpose of that excavation?
So they just have to excavate the bottom portion out at least probably 2 feet from the sidewalk over, so we can lay the manor stone brick up to 3 foot. But then we'll be bringing in dirt from like site 1 to fill in that 200-foot area. But we wanted it leveled off enough for when Melissa has camps or anything like that. We didn't want like an abrupt edge, and we wanted to transition with shrubs right there. So that then people aren't going into the pollinator garden and there'll be shrubs up on top. So it's to kind of level it off a little bit, so it's not so much of a steep, I don't know if you've seen it or not, but it's pretty steep that, you know, we don't want anybody rolling down there or anything when they're trying to maintain it or be planting anything of that sort.
So if we were interested in working on something like the pollinator garden, can we meet somebody down there and look at it? And, you know, I mean, I don't know where we're at. I don't know how to, like, have you talked with the Xerces Society or anything like that at all? I mean, so, I mean, I'd be willing to kind of maybe help on that, but I don't even know where to start. So it seems like it would be good to have kind of a, you know, an opportunity to meet somebody at the site and kind of see what your concerns and issues may be with, in regards to camps and all of that stuff before we work on that.
Yeah, we can meet down there to show, if you want to see kind of what the vision was, that's fine. But helping out would be like, plants are really expensive right now, and like, I was looking at more of that kind of stuff, like getting donations of plants. Like I said, you can do some grants, but it might be a budgeting thing where we'd have to kind of budget that in, because if it's about 30, I think it's about $30,000 for all the manor stone, because it's a super long strip. I mean, 200 feet's a long ways to be running a 3-foot wall, so that would be a majority of our cost.
And we can take you down there. What we can do is we can outline the project and the needs of the project, and specifically outline ways where we think that the group can plug in. And like, if there are recommendations of money you are aware of that we should go out for, or groups we should be reaching out to, we can also utilize that as well to try to get the project off the ground.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I know, like, personally, I would be interested in working on that. And so if there's a way to kind of have a little kickoff or something so that we can at least kind of get our heads wrapped around it, I think that would be maybe a good start. And then, because I mean, I don't know what to ask people for. I mean, you know, I don't understand enough about the project, so I guess it would be good to kind of see that.
Sure.
And
Yeah, definitely.
I think that is
Really?
just a comment to follow up Ken's, that idea that we need to be able to at least see these things, to visualize them so we can be more helpful. I think that carries through to a lot of the different things that you know, we'd like to get involved in, or you'd like us to get involved in, you have to be able to see it, or at least get some sense of it pretty regularly in order to be effective, I think. So I think that's a theme that carries through, and we ought to look at ways to, I mean, I want to spend hours having you guys have to take us, show us everything, but for these kinds of specific projects, I think that kind of theme should carry through.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry, Emily.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, I think there's a really potentially nice tie-in here with the V-City USA program, which is something that the NRC has been talking a lot about and is kind of a priority item on the next year or two goals. And it's a really excellent program that's offered by the Xerxes Society for Invertebrate Conservation. It's a global organization, but they have a headquarters here right in Portland. And they are really knowledgeable. They have an incredibly knowledgeable staff. I've been working with Sharon Salvaggio, who's the IPM specialist for Xerxes, as well as a couple of their staff members who have given presentations to the CIC and the NRC. And that was something that we talked about at the last NRC meeting as a potential to bring to you all, to have Xerxes come and kind of give a presentation on what they're about. And they're a great resource for establishing pollinator gardens. They can help with sourcing seeds, and if grant money were to be the funding source for this, then I think that partnering with them to do like a Metro grant would probably be they'd be a really good partner for that. And of course, it would need city sponsorship or community investment, kind of at the very, very local level. But yeah, they're a really great ally, and I've been talking to them, and they're happy to do a presentation to our group if that is something that is of interest.
Ready to move to the next? Leslie.
All right, so my ideas begin with March for Meals. March for Meals is a national Meals on Wheels America campaign. Essentially, it is something that we participate in as members for not just fundraising, although that's probably the largest reason that March for Meals occurs, but also just outreach. So volunteer recruitment, things like that. Commitment for March for Meals from the community members or from, PrAC members could be a large commitment. It could be a small commitment. Essentially, you could be a celebrity Meals on Wheels driver for just one day. You may not know that you're a celebrity, but according to the Meals on Wheels America grant and the funding opportunity, anyone who has city involvement or government involvement at all, so committee members, commission members, mayor, whoever that might be, if they were to show up and deliver for a day with someone who is active already in the program, it would qualify. Essentially, what we're doing for the entire month of March is as much outreach as possible. Again, with the desire to, of course, raise funds for the program, and in addition, raise just awareness, truly. We are seeing more and more people as baby boomers are aging into the demographic of those we serve. The need is rising constantly. So March for Meals will be an annual thing that we participate in. So it's not just a one-time thing. We would hope that people could get involved every single year. In addition to that, a project during spring building closure. So we do close generally the week of spring break every year. This is kind of the history of the Pioneer Center. We take advantage of capital improvement projects if possible during that time. We obviously just finished one of those, so we don't have one on the agenda for this spring, but it is a time for spring cleaning. It's a time for painting. Staff has also used that opportunity for training and whatnot, but as far as PrAC is concerned, if there was any type of project that you thought you could get in and do or that needed to be done at the center, we would be open to that and think it would be a great opportunity to kind of, get our hands dirty together as we do some projects that are needed. An annual fundraiser event, I put an example of like a dinner and auction. This would be a time for us to be proactive with fundraising, to create an additional fundraiser that isn't yet something that we do. I have hosted a lot of auctions. I've put a lot of auctions together. What I will tell you about them is it takes a ton of staff time and energy and effort. So we would be looking for support of volunteers, not necessarily just PrAC members, of course, but also, you know, kind of bringing the army of people that we know together to make something like that come to fruition. I think that there is a ton of opportunity for us to be proactive with fundraising because we do have big things in the future. ADA accessibility is a huge topic, and we're looking at our restrooms specifically. So I think about how we're going to need some match for those grants that we're going to be seeking in the future, and that's just an opportunity for us to be proactive with that funding again. Polling, surveying, community for Pioneer Center programs, what that looks like to me, and really where that came from, is through this process of the Parks Master Plan. I think that as I've, you know, gone through the information that we've gathered, there's just, you know, more questions to be answered. One of the things that was a top priority for our community members that participated in that survey is adult fitness programming. We offer a multitude of that through the Pioneer Community Center. So for people to say that they're wanting that, we have more questions for them. Are they looking for evening programs? Are they looking for programs that we aren't yet offering? So there's just more questions, I think, that need to go out to the community to get a better idea. We can add programs all day, but is it what the community wants? That's what I'm really after with that one. Adopt a Meals on Wheels route. This just speaks to the fact that we are consistently and constantly needing Meals on Wheels drivers. Again, that need will not go away as more people are aging into the program. The adopted apartment parking lot, this actually I can't take credit for. I inherited a file in my file cabinet in my office that said PrAC engagement ideas. I don't even know what year that was on there from, but I did look at that and think it was worth talking about. My vision for that, and I guess what I think about, is all of our facilities and our parks, essentially we're entering the parking lot first. We're parking, we have an amazing parks team. I'm blown away at how thorough they are and how wonderful they are. But I also arrive to a center every single day where the parking lot has litter and all sorts of things. And so I was just thinking about that, how that really is a first impression for our Parks Department, is when people are first pulling out to the facility or the park, and how there's always room for us to do better in that area. Grant seeking, I want to emphasize the seeking. I love grant writing. I'm actually, it's a fun hobby of mine, believe it or not. So, but what does take a ton of time is actually seeking the funding and diving into the weeds of, you know, do we qualify, and is our project that we are thinking about, is this going to be funded through this foundation or this organization? And so really just some admin time is what I was thinking about with that particular one. And then you're going to hear a trend a lot about just attending community events, and what I'm meaning in that area is specifically community engagement and outreach. It is part of our subrecipient agreement with the county that we do public outreach. We can do that alone as staff, but we can also have others do that with us and for us. And the purpose of that in the subrecipient agreement is that we are notifying the community of the programs that we do. We want to make sure that people are aware of those social service programs, as well as the other healthy aging programs, and make sure we're getting the word out that we provide them.
Any questions? All right.
Which parking lot?
Yes, I think that that's a great presentation, and there's a huge need, and yet your department too. But I'm interested in your Meals on Wheels drivers' needs, and what are the hours of a driver's duties right there?
Yeah, that's definitely going to depend on the route. Of course, we have just in-town routes that could be just a half an hour commitment, for instance, where the more rural routes could be up to a 2-hour commitment. But we do say that it should roughly be between 10 and 12.
And do you have drop-in volunteer days? I mean, if I end up with a free day and I go, ooh, I could do that. Is that something that would be acceptable, or do you need somebody there every Tuesday to go ahead and do a route?
Yeah, because the program, and the delivery of that service is so vital, we try to make sure that every day is covered. What does come up on the occasion is the need for substitute drivers. And so if you weren't always available or couldn't commit to, let's say, 1 day per week or even 1 day per month, for instance, we would always love you to reach out if you were available, or have the opportunity to call you if we needed a substitute.
Thank you.
Sorry, one more question. Are people using their own cars, or do you have, like Meals on Wheels cars that people use?
Volunteers do drive their own vehicles.
Okay, thank you.
Did you have a question?
Which parking lot are you having?
Well, I had put department because I do think, again, I know I'm speaking about the Pioneer Center and I'd love to have you there, but the need is probably greater in other parking lots, I would imagine, for the department. But I would say that both of our lots, need attention on a regular basis. And perhaps if, there were a volunteer opportunity there, it could be, visiting a few at a time or something like that.
All right. Alyssa?
Yeah. So as far as, aquatics and recreation goes, and, some of these things included on this slide are kind of high level as far as, how you guys can advise department-wide. I think it's really important to be engaging, further with the commission on behalf of our department, especially, if you are going for a public comment, speaking, as a Park and Recreation Advisory Committee member or on behalf of PRAC. I think, in regards to aquatics and the swimming pool overall, I'm going to do my, little advocacy plug for that. Our swimming pool is very old. It's going to be 60 years old in 2025, and that is a site that is highly utilized and open from 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. most days of the week. We have very few full-time staff during those operating hours. I'm the manager for that site, but I am off of that site. I also manage a historic house museum and a lot of off-site events and programs. And so, we need just kind of that advocacy to get some more, full-time staff there for programs. Our swimming lessons are continuously getting wait lists that are longer and longer, and it's getting harder and harder for parents to get their kids into these vital programs to learn this life-saving skill. And, I can come to you guys and ask for advice, on like how we do our scheduling and how we choose our programs. But it comes down to just, the pool is such a vital place for so many types of programs. And if we had additional staffing, it could provide us more opportunities to add in more water safety programs that may not take place in the pool, but where we could potentially go out to the schools and provide some education in classrooms, where we can potentially find some additional funding or apply for grants or get sponsorships or additional funding to be able to bring in a robust school swim lesson program. We used to have a really robust one years ago, but especially coming out of the pandemic, there's just a lack of school funding and time during the day to be able to do it. So there's a lot of factors into that. And then, if we ever get to a point where we, start talking about needing to build another swimming pool, which I think we're already there, it's not something that's easily going to happen. So it's something that, if you want to have one in the next 20 years, I think it needs to start being talked about now. Especially because I don't want this city to get into a point where this site does get to a point where it can't operate and we're not able to provide
this important service as a city that lines a river. Because I think as, you know, a city that lines a river, it's our due diligence to make sure that we're getting those life-saving skills out there to the community. And so that's, you know, my big plug. I think it needs to be talked about and brought up more. And then, you know, I put volunteer and community outreach events because, you know, the other thing that I do within my job is I help find places where we can plug into and talk about our programs and what our department does, whether it's at the farmer's market or for city celebration or at some of our own events. And so I think it would be great to have more of our PrAC members come out to those and hang out with our staff and talk to the public and help talk about a lot of the services that we do and kind of, you know, get to know more of what we do too. Because I think, you know, we come here and we give our monthly updates, but, you know, there's a lot more offerings that come within that I think would be important to do. And I know like right now, you know, I'm working with some other city staff for a Juneteenth event, and it was brought up in one of those meetings, it would be great to have, you know, some PrAC members there represented for that. So I think that that's something that would be awesome. And then, you know, again, common theme, you know, doing some site visits and attending events. I would love to, you know, do a visit at the swimming pool and show some of the original electrical work there and, you know, some stuff there that may need to be addressed at some point. So, yeah.
Any questions?
Melissa, great presentation. And am I speaking over anybody?
Nope.
Your request for attending events and being part of your group and as well as your specific needs that you want from the city commission, we can take notes from you. And you know, here you're on our meetings, or we're on your meetings every month here, and we'd love to hear about these events and hear a request from you saying, hey, this, attend, please. And then if indeed there is a city commission meeting where you have a request to go ahead and ask for an event or something or monies, we'll take talking points from you and speak from them. All right? So if you need an advocate, that's how we could be of help. But we need talking points. And I know that, you know, we could work together on this.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that point that Tim was making about our ability to be an advocate for you with things like city commission, we have to be, just my most recent example of that, though, puts us in kind of an odd spot. If we haven't, as a group, had a good discussion about whatever it is we're going to advocate for, I can't get up there and say, as the vice chair, I'm here tonight speaking on behalf of the PrAC committee, unless the PrAC committee has actually taken that subject up and spoken to it. I chose to the other night speak as, you know, Steve Williams from Oregon City, which is fine. But if PrAC's going to speak as a group, we will have had to have at least had some discussions about that. And I think, Kendall, that's where, if you can foresee or you know, Melissa, foresee that coming up, if we can get it in front of us, then we can have our discussion and then one of us can go do just exactly what Tim is saying. That way then we can speak as PrAC and not as individuals, which I think definitely helps.
Yeah.
And be very willing to do that.
I guess kind of to piggyback on that a little bit, all of these, I mean, they're all great ideas, and a lot of them are things that we can, you know, I think as a committee, I don't think we could even come close to dealing with all of them. So, but I do think that there's probably one or two that in here that spark interest of each of us individually. But there's also some things that we probably need to figure out as a PrAC, you know, and that's kind of maybe where some of the goals and things would fit in. But no, it's interesting to see all of these needs, and like I said, there's a couple that I probably definitely will just dive in and do by myself, but I won't do it as prac, because we've not been able to really go through all of that, so. It's a neat list, though.
A lot of good stuff, a lot of very good stuff.
Al, you want to take this one or you want me to take it?
I can take this one. Under the Oregon Trail is a building from the 90s. It has some 1990s philosophies in building construction. There aren't a lot of drip edges. There aren't a lot of water mitigation solutions. And so the siding is actually a shear structure. So the siding is part of the structure. It's not just, for looks. It's not in great shape. We've conservatively estimated about $750,000 for replacement. And we do not have that. The can has been kicked down the road for quite some time. People before me have had the same issue trying to get this funded, and we're just not finding it. I asked for about $820,000 for some very necessary deferred maintenance work on this building in the next biennium, and it did not come through. We currently have some very pressing concerns that there's about roughly $65,000 in deck repairs that need to happen in the near future, about $53,000 in HVAC, and not shown in this photo, but on the gift shop, we have a new about $5,000 roof repair. That there's some issues of water infiltration that's causing some damage. And so just the ability to come up with a plan. The pool's 60 years old. It was built to last 60 plus. I don't believe that this building was really designed to last that amount of time, and it's starting to show. And so I think some decisions need to be made of which direction we can go.
This was built 60 years ago?
The pool.
The pool.
He's
Okay.
Not the end of the Oregon Trail.
Yeah, I was going, I missed that part. Yeah, okay, thank you.
This was done in the mid-90s.
Yeah, okay.
So I was just comparing it to the masonry, poured concrete construction of another building, whereas this is entirely a balloon frame 2x6 structure.
Just a question with regard to what kind of deferred maintenance planning efforts? We've talked about that a couple different times since I've been here, but it's still not clear to me what process is in place to deal with this, because we've talked a lot about plans tonight, but without some kind of plans and prioritizations, you'll never get funding for these things. I mean, $800,000 worth of funding.
We already did the plan in 2021, and we're working off that plan. But there are obviously some big ticket items that we just can't afford. And so that's where we're getting a lot of these figures from and knowing that now with inflation and all the issues we went through with supply chain, those numbers are probably a whole lot more. So currently, based on the plan that we did back in 2021, we have about $23 million worth of deferred maintenance that incorporates our facilities and our parks. So that's why it's critical when we start having these conversations around funding and when we get to the point of having those conversations with our Parks Master Plan and the city commissioners and all of you, that we really have to understand we have some huge funding gaps that we're going to need to address. And unless we have a clear plan moving forward to address those, we're going to continue to try to play the catch-up game, and we're just not going to be able to address these issues.
I mean, that story is a relived story at almost every organization and government entity that I've ever been around. Way more needs than you have funding. There isn't a silver bullet that I know of, but you have to keep revisiting those plans, reprioritizing, re-emphasizing. I mean, I can't imagine Oregon City with a, here we are at the end of the Oregon Trail facility. I mean, you can't imagine it not being there or not being able to be used. It's used for so many different things, but it's easy to sit back and say, well, we just can't afford it, so we'll just watch it fall down. Or the pool. I mean, the pool is a perfect example of something you can't be without, but at the same time, you have to put money into it in order to maintain it. Otherwise it will crumble before your eyes.
Right.
And at the end, then all you're left with is, well, we just didn't take care of that. Well, that isn't going to be acceptable. I don't have the magic answer, but you do have to revisit, reemphasize, and put it out in front of people, decision makers, enough that they can't ignore it.
Yeah.
And I don't know the right way to do that.
And then, just so everyone knows here too, we're also doing a citywide facilities master plan that will aid us in addressing some of these issues with some of these facilities and provide some options that we can share with the community, the city commission, and PRAC moving forward on how we can address some of these deficits when it comes to the next 10 to 20 years. And like facilities like End of the Oregon Trail and the pool are top of mind, and we've been having numerous conversations about what's going to be the plan for those moving forward. We know that these facilities are at the end of life. So what do we need to do in regards to planning long-term to continue to serve the community at a high level, but also address some of the needs? The other thing that we've been doing is sharing the information from our Parks Master Plan with our consultants who are doing the Facilities Master Plan, so they can tie that information together and make sure that there's some cohesion there moving forward, so we're all on the same page. Cemeteries is another one. So we're definitely trying to develop a process to where we have some vision, some direction for the future for these facilities.
I made some comments earlier at one of the budget hearings regarding the fact that if you didn't get your maintenance taken care of, you got to be careful not to keep doing new projects that you can't follow up behind and maintain. And I think that's a trap that we fall into all the time, because new is really cool and everybody loves to get patted on the back for new and all that. Deferred maintenance isn't very sexy and doesn't really, people don't love it. But if you don't do it first and keep building new, you're going to watch the wall stuff fall down behind you. And that's we can't let ourselves keep falling into that trap. And we appear to be doing that quite regularly now based on what you've shown us here. So.
Well, that ends the segment of the ideas. Now, the next step for all of you is we wanted to have some conversation around the feedback that we received from you about agenda topics. We got a lot of, capital projects. So we've kind of talked a little bit about that already with grants and funding. That's just going to go with capital projects. There's not a lot of additional information to add with those. But we'll transition into the conversation around future agenda topics. So what Corey has done is provided a list of some of the topics that we received from all of you as certain things that you'd like to have us bring back or just have discussions on. And what we thought that would be a great opportunity for all of you to share your own personal topics, to provide you the opportunity to share with the group, and then also decide on how you would like to prioritize some of these things moving forward for the next year. Do you want me to call on somebody to kick us off to share their topics?
Well, Kendall, thank you for putting this future agenda topics together. I think it's great. I think today to go ahead and decide which one we're going to work on is probably not practical at all. But if we go ahead and say this is our homework, and here with this slide right here is our list to go ahead and prioritize about what's important to go ahead and talk about in the coming year. I think that would be great. So if, what is there, 15 things there or so, if everybody goes ahead and ranks those, that would be a good thing to bring up. And then once a month, we can go ahead and pick one or two of these things and talk about it at length. So it's something that this is a huge deal. We got to go ahead and also think about what is the PRAC committee's role in each one of these topics. How are we going to go ahead and be effective in talking about this? And if indeed our role is just to go ahead and advocate for park managers and help advocate to the city commission, then working on property acquisition is probably something that is way out there compared to something that we could advocate and have a more immediate effect. So I would say let's rank these and see what else we can do, because I have another future agenda topic that's not on there, and it's called permanent nets to pickleball courts that the pickleball players would pay for even, and be an enhancement to Oregon City, and that's yet another one to talk about. So I'll pass it on to whoever wants to go ahead and talk next, but that's my thoughts right now.
I wanted to say that a few of you did go ahead and rate these and send that back to me, so I appreciate that. Thank you. The difficult part is that we're all different, so we all have different priorities, and so making sense of those and presenting those in a way that made sense just turned out to be a real struggle. I had put together an Excel spreadsheet, and it's just kind of all over the place. And I think you each have some really great ideas. I know, Ken, that you had kind of put some of these within a larger or under a larger umbrella. So that made sense to me. But Kendall and I have kind of talked about, like, rather than seeing all of these on the new agenda every month, which is overwhelming, maybe we would just do a couple, and then the tracking would happen kind of behind the scenes by me. So then I would have notes of, here's when we talked about this particular agenda topic, or here's when we will be talking about this particular agenda topic. And so the tracking happens behind the scene, and you don't have a giant list on your agenda every month.
The other thing that we talked about is having this list and sending it out in a survey format to allow you to prioritize the items on the list based on whatever your preference is, to help try to build some level of a consensus around what we're hearing from everyone, that would make it a little bit easier to digest moving forward. Obviously, some of these things are going to be dictated just by the nature of the season and city commission and timing for when we're able to bring things back. It won't be something that we can just bring back next week. But some of these things we can plan out in advance over the course of the year to actually say, okay, this is what we kind of have the schedule laid out, so we can plan more effectively moving forward as well. So, but that's up to you.
I think as I look at this list now and I think about what I did when I sat down and prioritized it, I can see, Corey, your problem would have been a real challenge because we all have different, and I was lumping things kind of together. There's a theme through some of this that's, Parks and Recreation funding. And as I look at my list back now, it looks to me like I was focused a lot on, kind of trying to lump things together that it all dealt with funding and how might you go about securing those funds or advocating for those funds. I think that was what was in my head as we went through. I think that's a theme or a role of PRAC. How all of these fit underneath that probably is a little bit more of a challenge. We may not all agree of what funding we should be reaching out and trying to advocate for. So I like your thought about, a couple and work it behind the scenes. I think that is good. I'll say right now, just because I think we ought to get it on the list and then we're talking about it, I think Tim's idea of that one particular project, let's get it on there and let's work on it. Let's bite into that thing as a group and see what we can do with it. And then from there, maybe we'll learn a little bit about it and we can get on even with some of these that I think are, I won't say they're higher priority, but they probably are broader in scope for the city. But I'd like to take on Tim's project and let's put it out there and see whether we can run with it. And if we fall on our face, then we've fallen on our face. But if we don't and are able to do the advocacy at that smaller scale, then I think we can probably expand out and be more effective at some of the larger projects as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think starting with a very bite-sized project makes a lot of sense, Steve. That seems like a good way to kind of get the momentum going.
I think that working with one or two, really one, because it's pretty inclusive. I mean, just look at this pollinator garden up at the pool. Man, that could be quite a discussion and involvement for everybody. We've got to be careful what we ask for because, that could be a lot of work. So to say that we'll concentrate on one per month is probably a little bit more realistic. And looking at what Kendall has brought up, and gosh, every month there's something that is new and different, and whether it's the Cayuse plan or a park or the this bikeway and walkway, we got to listen to that kind of stuff too. So to have an additional thing that we could do and say, all right, this month we're going to do one thing, it'd probably be more bite-sized and achievable. Anybody else?
Well, I have some thoughts, as you probably have imagined. I guess my feeling is that there's, especially on a couple of these, I don't feel like we have enough information or, enough information to actually even advocate for half of those things that we've already seen, because we just don't know what they are. I think that when you take something like the park master plan, and we've not really, we've discussed it kind of, we've had some updates, but we didn't even really get a chance to even discuss our comments on the plan and kind of the direction of some of that. So some of these things are kind of clearly policy in a way that we can maybe advise or recommend or, kind of help advocate for some of those policy changes. Others are things that really require us to just get our hands in the dirt and do, which, and I'm for both. It's just that right now, we have this giant list and there's a bunch of these things that are really pretty significant and important components that all need to be put together before we can even carve off some of these little pieces. And so I think when we start, especially when we start talking about, property acquisition or bond measures or some of these, we don't have anything that really says, well, we want to go out and we want to go for a bond measure. And so the question would be, okay, well, how much? Well, we have, who knows? We don't have any projects. We don't have a list. We don't have any of these things to kind of help us in turn advocate for some of those projects. So I think for me, it's really trying to get my head wrapped around some of the bigger picture items. And then we can carving off a little thing about pickleball nets. That's a small agenda item that we could clearly take care of in one night. But it doesn't help us get back to kind of the bigger picture, which is, all of these things like park development and park design standards, funding. None of those things, we just don't have any information to actually kind of go back and work with. So I still am kind of feeling that we just need to really understand kind of what these bigger pictures items are. This park master plan is a huge opportunity for us and the department to really, that's just the foundation for any future advocacy based on what is in this plan. And so far, I've read the plan, I read every word in it, and I couldn't tell you what one key project in that plan is. And so that's the kind of thing that I guess I'm interested in, is trying to break it down or get it to a point where we can start breaking it down into bite-sized portions.
Go ahead, Tim.
Very good. Ken, I really like your ideas. That's great. And I think a lot of this is process. It is, okay, what can we do that's easy, all right? And what can we do that is really moving, the Park and Recs department further down the line, all right? And it's probably best to go ahead and even to present a project, we've got to have a couple of things: the presentment of facts, the dollar amount, the action items, and what are we going to ask for the city commission? I mean, we've got to have these things numbered out to go ahead and have a process of how we're going to go ahead and really talk about every goal, whether it is a small one or a huge one. What is the task? What is the ask for our city commission? Because that's what we do. I mean, we're only asking the city commission. That's why we exist. So I agree with you, Ken. I think that we just need an outline on how to go ahead and present our topics, to hear our topics, and to get the action items to go ahead and move forward and further down the line.
I think I need to make some clarification as well with some of the projects that we have going on and the goals that are dictated to us by the city commission. So with process, there needs to be some level of direction and approval. And Steve knows this. Our process is long and extensive. And so, for instance, when we're having these conversations around funding and the Parks Master Plan, we will bring that information back to you. But the bigger conversation around funding, that's going to be a conversation that is going to be dictated by the city commission when we bring that information back. And they will provide the direction on where they would like for us to kind of move forward from there. We're currently working on our CIP plan that will list out all of our projects that are going to be priorities for us within our Parks Master Plan. So that information is coming as well. And when we bring up these projects that we're passionate about, we want to move forward with, and we don't have the funding for them, it's hard for us to kind of split some time between the projects that we do have funding for and the things that we have to currently maintain, and then deviate to some degree on a project that we currently don't have funding for. So we have these ideas of things we want to pursue, but we've had conversations among ourselves. We'd like to kind of break out some of these projects, so when we do have people who want to come alongside us and support us and help us with funding, that we can move these projects forward. But we still have to manage 38 parks and multiple facilities and a cemetery and still maintain the level of services that we're currently providing. It's not from a lack of desire to want to bring these things to you. These are just things that we know that we need to do that we just currently don't have right now. So our goal tonight was to say, okay, these are some of the projects that we think that we need to pursue. And if there's a project that you would like to support, like to get behind, then we can start doing the work and the planning and doing site visits and start putting that work in to bring that information to you so we can get those projects moving forward.
Kendall, I think that it also revolves on process. So no matter what thing that we go ahead and pick for our future agenda topics, it was all right. Yeah, we want to talk about park development and park design standards. Well, great. You have a process that has to be followed, and we're not aware of it. Okay, and no matter what one we pick, and after everybody goes home and does their homework and says we're going to work on these. All right, well, what's behind that? Okay, now that we do this, we need direction from you, so we're not doing this shotgun approach. We want to go ahead and say, all right, these are achievable goals. We're working in this direction, and we need help from you to go ahead and say, all right, these are the steps. This is the topic you chose. Here's ABC that we got to go ahead and work on.
So the one thing, and I kind of agree with what Kendall has said, but, you know, and you're actually talking about, you know, opportunities too. And so if we have a finite list that we're gonna follow, and then we kind of lose the opportunity to take advantage of other opportunities. So tonight, Tim, you just brought up an opportunity for funding and a project that's apparently, or at least on the surface, is, you know, ready to go. It's not going to cost the city any money, you know, and we haven't talked about whether there's good things or bad things about it, but that's an opportunity. And I think you always want to be able to make sure that you have enough flexibility built in to take advantage of these opportunities that are going to come up, whether it's a grant that is very specific to what it would take care of. I'm like, say, the pollinator garden. I'm pretty sure that, you know, a nature and neighborhoods grant would be perfect for something like that. And so that's an opportunity. So you don't want to kick it to the curb just because it falls off on its number 10, when actually it can elevate because there's an opportunity for funding. So I guess we want to try to consider all of that while we're in there. And I don't know, you know what I mean? There's no real easy way to make a list and say, okay, here's exactly the order we're going to follow.
Yeah, it seems like the priority should be contingent on like how much potential there is for PRAC to be involved and how much funding there is for those projects, rather than like, you know, just kind of an offhand, like, well, this is number one and this is number two. It seems like it would depend on a lot of moving parts.
Well, I think the other aspect to it, because we are an advisory body, our role is to be advisory. We may have projects that we're heavily vested in, but at the same time, we're here to help advise you, or you ask us for advice, however it works. We're here to, you know, work on things that will help you and the Parks Department get their job done as well. So that has to be played into it. It can't just be what we want, but it's got to be. And that partnership, I I think we can strengthen that a little bit over what we've done, at least in the time that I have been here. And that just requires communication, and that really is what it comes down to around this table. But I think Ken's point about like the master plan, we need to stay involved in that. That's one of those things you stay involved in all the time, because that, he's right, that's where the advocacy, the basis of that plan will be what out into the future allows us to advocate for anything. As long as we can fit what we're doing in underneath that plan, which, if the way I've been around most plans, you can almost fit anything underneath them if you need to. But as long as we are able to understand what the plan is, because right now, I don't think any of us around the table understand what that is. That's a key place to start, and then we can work on the individual projects as we go. But without that base plan, we don't have anything.
I mean, I think that's where our momentum's gonna come from, is the culmination of a good master plan. And once that's out and adopted, I think that just kind of sets the groundwork to be able to advocate for just about anything, because it's in an approved and adopted plan, and it's been vetted in a bunch of different ways. But yeah, I mean, it's just, we want to be able to kind of piggyback on any momentum to then start talking about other funding opportunities and strategies to then implement the master plan.
And Kendall, you are right. The process here with the city and this planning is glacial in its movement. But that's where you have to help us with our expectations and your needs. And between those two, then we figure out how to make the thing move forward.
I think that's great, you guys. Thank you for all your input. That's tremendous on prioritizing stuff. So it sounds like, just to summarize from my point of view, is that every meeting we should talk about the Parks Master Plan, and then choose a topic to go ahead and highlight, bring attention to, and see if we can derive some action from. And what do you think, Kendall? Is that a plan? How do you want to go ahead and move forward from here?
I can provide updates on where we are with the Parks Master Plan, but in-depth conversation about it's going to come when we finally get to a point to where we have our final draft and it's ready to be brought back to PRAC and the city commissioners. That wouldn't be feasible to actually have like a presentation or something like that. In regards to kind of how we move forward, one of the topics that we have on here is goals. And I think right now we have a project that I think has been identified as something that we want to move forward. But what I want to bring to the attention of all the committee members is we started this process of creating the goals for PRAC and having goals for the Parks and Recreation Department. It's really important to understand that the City Commission sets our goals as a department. We have to move those goals forward. It does us a disservice if PRAC comes back with goals that's going to require time and resources of my staff that pulls us away from moving forward with the goals that the City Commission has designated for us to do. One of the conversations we've been having since I've been here is how do we get PRAC more active, and we move away from the point to where we're coming, providing presentations, we're talking about the work that we're doing as a department, but we're not really bringing PRAC along, and we're not really getting PRAC involved in that process. So when you're talking about goals, I really would like for the goals to be more centered around what are the committee members going to be doing? What are the committee members going to be pushing forward? And focus more on that. Goals for the actual committee to say, so for instance, if it's the pollinator garden, let's talk about that. Let's move that forward. how is the committee going to decide to move that forward? And we'll come along and assist, but how are we going to move that forward, moving forward as the committee? I mean, we can support you, obviously, but like when you did the PrAC annual report, you said, this is all stuff your department did. We didn't do any of this. We don't want to do another report. Like, obviously, we're still going to be achieving things and making things happen within the department, but we want to be able to speak to things that are PrAC focused, PrAC driven moving forward.
Key observation
Kendall,
from, I'll be real quick, Tim. Key observation from the statement you just made is our ability to move forward hinges a lot on us understanding what the process is. So it's not still not real clear to me sometimes if we have, and it varies depending upon what we're talking about. But I think where you can help us and we can help you back and forth, but help us understand, okay, you're deciding to move forward in this direction with this project or this issue. Here's the steps you're going to have to walk through to get there. And, you know, somebody made the comment earlier about the issue with the pickleball courts. We can just knock that one off in one evening. I'm pretty sure that that's a maybe not a multi-evening discussion, but it's a multi-step process to make that happen. Understanding what that is will help us be much better at getting it done down the road because we know what we're coming at. And I think that's where you can really help us, Kendall.
Thank you, Steve. Kendall, one other point that you just made and that our committee is not aware of is the PrAC has to work with the City Commission on their goals for the Park and Rec department. We don't know what those goals are, and you have not presented them to us. So how does their agenda overlap with our future agenda topics? And if indeed we can merge those, you know, we might be working in the right direction.
Yes, and so the goals are still the Parks Master Plan and SDC methodology, which we've been bringing forward to the committee. Those haven't changed. Those are the focuses for the City Commission.
If I may, when I was in the PrAC many years ago, it felt like each of us that was on the committee was an advocate for something, okay? And every meeting, I would bring up Filbert Run. Where are we on Filbert Run? Filbert Run's done and gone now. Thank you very much. You know, Tim out there advocating for the pickleball courts because that's in his heart. We had somebody on the committee that was for the pool. I mean, every time he was here, it was like, this is what we need to do to help the pool, and would bring it to us, and it really kept it forefront in all of our minds about what was going on. You know, if you're advocating for the boat ramp, we need somebody that's going to advocate for the Meals on Wheels, and we had a representative, Roger, from the Pioneer Center that sat on PrAC, that was one of us volunteers that not just gave the reports, but really talked to us about what the programming was going on, you know, what was happening. You know, it's kind of the boots on the ground, what he could see from the inside out, not as a staff member, but as a community member that used the facilities. Okay. And that's what I see, what I had seen the role of PrAC as being, is us going out there and using those facilities that, and then bring it back to talk about how we can help with funding for it, as we did with Filbert Run Park, what kinds of things that we can look on. When I look at West Good Neighbor funds, that makes no sense to me as to, because that's not what we're here to do. We're not here to go out and find all of those little things to
grants to apply for. But what we're here for is to help staff apply for those grants. From kind of an outsider's perspective, maybe, as not a staff member, we're volunteers seeing what's needed. What I'm hearing is, from the kids at school, okay, we want a skate park at Wesley Lynn. Okay, so when it comes down to the Parks Master Plan, what do we have for facilities at Wesley Lynn? When I run into somebody that said, we need ADA accessibility for a child at Wesley Lynn Park to access the play equipment. They can use the play equipment that's there, but they can't get down to it. That's our job, is to listen to the community and bring it back to staff. Because that's what we have in our hearts. All of you have your own special things. Karen Morey, God bless her, and her advocacy for the cemetery. Yeah, that's what I see, Tim, as our goals as a committee, is to find how we can help staff accomplish those goals.
All right, any other comments, questions? Staff reports. I've already given you your update on the Clackamas Park Master Plan. We do plan to bring that back to the City Commission to talk about the rezoning. And just a reminder, we do not have a meeting in November due to Thanksgiving, but we do have PrAC interviews scheduled for the first week in December, on Thursday, December 7th at 6 p.m. here for a work session for all of the PrAC applicants. We currently have 5 or 6, I believe. We will utilize that work session to do interviews. Once we have all the applicants, all of those applications will go out to all of you with a copy of the interview questions, and we will send that schedule out to you so we can do those interviews, and then we will do deliberation during a regular meeting after the interviews on that day, make a recommendation to the mayor.
When does that application process close?
I believe it's towards the end of November, because I know that they do the appointments December 12th, I believe. And that's the update that I have. Any staff have any additional updates?
No, he's back.
Okay. The only thing that we will need to follow up on when we do have a regular meeting is have some more in-depth conversation at the next meeting about the topics and goals. Hopefully, during that time, we can kind of narrow down what the goals of PrAC are going to be moving forward into the next year. The other thing that we'll need to talk about is we're going to be bringing some new PrAC members on, and once they're appointed, normally the month of January is when we bring in our city recorder to go through the training and have some conversations around onboarding those new members. So those are the main things that I have top of mind moving forward.
Do you have a process for maybe helping to kind of bring new members up to speed so that we don't have to go back through and, I mean, obviously the training's important for everybody to hear every year. I think that's valuable, but like possibly just sit down with them and just kind of go, here's where we're at, here's a draft of the master plan, you know what I mean? Just to kind of, so that we don't have to kind of start over ourselves and just kind of a way to just bring them up, catch them up.
You don't feel like that builds community between all of you since you're just.
Well, I mean, if we do that every year, we just kind of keep revisiting where we've been.
And why I do that is it's a reset for us to really kind of understand how we operate. We talk a lot about procedure and who we are and how a committee is supposed to operate. I think it's a good reset, and you have new faces coming in. If it was a situation where we didn't have such a large turnover, I would say, yeah, we could possibly do something a little bit different. But I also have meetings with all of the new members. We send out information to the new members with the PrAC bylaws. There's opportunities for me to meet with them to get them up to speed. But since we have so many new people coming in, I just think it would be really beneficial to have us. I mean, we can trim down the training.
I
Yeah.
maybe misunderstood. I mean, I think the training's important, and I do. So I was just talking actually more about your opportunity or extending the opportunity to meet with them and catch them up with specific projects and things like that, so that we're not revisiting that part.
Yeah,
of it. The training, I think, is
we do
always
that.
going to be valuable for everybody to
Yeah, we
to
do
sit
that.
through.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tim is back, but
Just one quick question that came to mind with what you mentioned. Our PrAC bylaws that we went before the, did
They got adopted.
they got adopted?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, yeah.
We had to go through a couple of readings and a couple of presentations.
Yes, I think I was there for
Yeah.
at least a couple of those, but, okay, so they did get
Yes,
adopted?
Yes,
Okay.
they did. All right.
So thank you, everybody. Sorry I lost connection. But I think that we had a great meeting, presenting a lot of great ideas. I appreciate that. I think that a homework for everybody to go ahead and prioritize what we should be talking about would be a great thing. And come to the December 7th meeting and let's talk about them and start prioritizing so that we can feel productive about what we want to go ahead and do. And Joyce, I like your idea about specializing in a topic. I think that we'll go ahead and get attention to our special needs that you are very interested in. So we'll talk about that on the 7th also. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Hey, Tim, just a quick follow-up because we're scheduling so far out. The pollinator garden is something that, we've all kind of talked about. Is that something that, would it make sense for me to reach out to get some kind of presentation about how we might kind of explore funding options or, establish connections with local nonprofits? Is that something that, I don't know, that would make sense for me to reach out at this point for the December meeting, just because we're scheduling so far out? It might be nice to give them kind of some time to prepare.
Emily, we can connect and we can do possibly a site visit, have some conversations about the project so we can get that ball rolling.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Thank you.
Very good. Thanks, Emily.
Yep.
All right, Kendall, anything else you got? That's the end of our road.
That's it.
all good.
I've been wanting to do this, Tim.
You feel better?
I do.
All right, very good. Hey, thanks a lot, everybody.
Thank you all.
And
Thank you.
Good night.